right, hello again, everyone. Just so you're aware of this, this morning I lectured from, I don't know, from like about 8:05 till about, I think it was around 9:05, right about an hour. Then after that, I gave a 10-minute break, and evidently after the break, somehow Teams dropped. So it stopped recording. I kept recording for another 40 minutes, but Teams stopped. So what I'm doing is I'm replicating the stuff that was dropped, and I'm going to do that right now. Okay, so I got up to page 282. There's about 20 pages or so left in the chapter. All right, so the first thing that they do in here is they go back and they show two ways of applying animation to this FAQ presentation that we have done before. Now, when you look in here, all right, a couple things that should be of note. Like we did in the example we looked at before, you'll notice that these links aren't going anywhere. So the what is jQuery, etc. So you can either click on the plus or the minus, or you should be able to click on the actual heading itself. Again, it won't go anywhere, but when we look in here, what we see are two different ways of creating the same program. You'll notice the second is shorter. That doesn't necessarily mean it's better or it's more understandable. It just basically means there'd be less typing. So what are we doing here? Well, we've got our ustrict in both and our document ready. And on both of them, we're putting in the code. So when we click any of those H2 headers, we're passing the event in. Notice in the first case, we are setting the current target right here. And then we're saying right here to toggle the minus right there. What does that mean? That means if the class is currently set to minus, it'll reset it back to plus and vice versa. All right. So what it's doing right here is we're checking it then to see what is it. So if it's not equal to minus, and I would have put the double equal sign there, it's no biggie. All right. We're telling it to fade out. Otherwise, and because that means that, again, we don't want to see that one anymore. Otherwise, we do want to see it, so we're doing a slide down. But notice we're doing a target dot next. So what we're doing is we are telling it right there to either, try that again, to either take this stuff that's down here and either hide it or show it. All right, that's exactly what we're telling it to do. So if it's not equal to minus, then it's the plus. And if it's the plus, that means remove it. How are we removing it? We're telling it here to fade out. Otherwise, we have just clicked the minus, so we're telling it to slide down. Not fade in or do anything, but we're telling what's here, which had been invisible, to slide down so we can see it. Now, in the other one, we're doing the same thing, but you notice that rather than using, we still have a toggle class in here, but we're calling toggle class on EVT dot current target dot toggle class. So we're taking basically and combining these two lines here into one line. And then we're just telling it to do a slide toggle on that one, which means over 1 second, if it was showing, make it disappear. If it wasn't showing, make it appear. Right? I mean, it's fairly, hopefully at least, that's fairly obvious as far as what's going on in there. Now, I don't like to sit and read to you. All right? So I'm giving you my own verbiage of what's going on in here. If you don't agree or you don't like it, please take a look and have a read on what's on page 282 there. All right? All right. Then the next thing that's done is we've got a slideshow application with effects. All right? So what does that mean? Well, it says here, this chapter will give you two ways of doing a slideshow. Let's take a look quickly at that. All right, so I'm going to bring this up if I can find it. I don't have it there. I thought I did. Bring it up here. That's totally fine. So again, this is chapter 9, and this is the slideshow. And notice they'll show it a couple of ways here first. So let's take a look at those. So we bring this up. There it is. You'll notice that after a few seconds, the picture will fade out and another one will come back in. All right, so there's one of them. And then we run it, and the output will basically look the same running it this way. So you can see we're doing a fade out and a fade in. All right, and it's the same output, but it's two different programs that are going to do that. In fact, one of the things that's even said in the chapter, unless I've already repeated it, is that there are always a multiple number ways of doing the same thing. All right. So it says part 1 here starts by showing the third slide in a slideshow as it's being faded in. It says in the div element, you can see 5 image elements. So let's look in the div element. So in that div, here are our 5 images right there. All right, so the div is called slides, as you can see. All right, so the ID attributes for these elements are caption, slide, and slides. And the caption and slide contain the caption and slide for the first slide in the show. All right. The CSS that's shown in there, just in my own words, they're setting the height to the same size for a little bit of uniformity. All right. I wouldn't have just set the height. I would have either changed the images that are in there, all right, or whatever, to make them all the same size. So what I'm saying is, and this might look a little funky, but let's take a look here. Well, look at, these are our images. So what do we have here? There's 380 by 253. I don't think that, there's 380 by 285. So there's no big thing, no big difference there. There's 380 by 285. There's 380 by 285. There's 380 by 252. All right, so we could try to go in and change that one. And again, these were all, I think it was 380 by 285, but we'll find out right now. So I made it a little taller. All right. So again, that was 380 by 285. So now so is that one. All right. This is 380 by 254. So let's change that one as well. These changes don't always seem to take place. They're supposed to, but they don't always seem to. So I'm going to make that 285 and save that. And then finally, this is the big one to change right here. This may look very skewed after I change it. So one more time, I'm going to go back and check. So this is 380 by 255. So it looks skewed. You can see that, but that's fine. So let me just save this and let me run it again and see if in your opinion at least, if it looks better now or worse. So again, that one looks funky, but notice when they leave and another one comes in, like that one didn't take, and neither did that one. All right, but they are all pretty much the same size now. So to me, that looks so much better and so much more professional. All right. Getting a message on my phone, even though the volume was off. Sorry about that. Silver alert, it looks like, or something. All right. So it says, in addition, the CSS sets the display property of all image elements to none. That way the browser doesn't display them, even if they're preloaded. Instead, it displays them one at a time as the jQuery code moves through it. All right. So as I mentioned to you earlier, it says in this first paragraph, one problem when learning jQuery is figuring out how to best apply the jQuery. All right. And where you are in your career right now, I would just say grab the one that makes the most sense to you. So in the first example here, it says the code starts by creating an array of image objects that store the source and alt attributes of each of the five images. All right. It does this by using an each method to process each one. All right. The code uses the attribute or ATTR method to get the source and the alt attributes for each one and stores them in the properties. Okay. Then it adds that to the array. All right. After the array has been created, it uses the set interval method to perform its function every 3 seconds. So it's going to change every 3 seconds. All right. And it says within that function, the first statement selects the caption and fades it out over a second. Then the second selects the slide and fades that out over a second. In addition, again, this statement includes a callback function. That's opposed to the second example, whereas it says there the code starts by setting the next slide variable to the first image. But it's both are doing the same thing. And the author even mentions on the bottom of the page, this shows just two of the many ways that an application like this can be coded. When you develop any application, it says there, one of the goals is to write code. Come on. Oh my gosh. This is ridiculous. There we go. That is easy to read, maintain, and reuse. All right. The next thing they get into then here is on how to stop and start a slideshow. Now, I've mentioned this before, but again, I don't know if it was in the part of the lecture that you heard or the part that got cut out. But especially if you are creating a website for younger viewers, maybe younger kids, they're probably not going to read if you've got a slideshow. They're going to be concerned with the picture, but not the text. So you can typically buzz through them pretty quickly because their attention span seems to be shorter. All right. On the other hand, if I'm creating a slideshow that I'm going to be showing at a retirement seminar where the people there are in their 60s or later and ready to retire, I want to make sure that the slides show for a longer interval of time. Plus, I want to set it up so that if necessary, if the user wants to stop on a certain slide, he or she is able to do so. They do that here by clicking on the slide. And when you click on it, it stops on that current slide. When you click on it again, it restarts. So there's a few points that they note here. First, as it says, there's a constant declared named run slideshow that stores an arrow function for running the slideshow. All right. Second, the code executes a statement that creates a timer. So again, it's going back and it's discussing stuff we worked on in a previous chapter. This timer is designed to run every 3 seconds, except when you click a slide. When you click a slide, basically, that timer should, for lack of better words, stop or be canceled, because that stops the slideshow. When you click it again, it should restart the timer and restart the slideshow or create a new timer for the slideshow again. All right. It says there on the bottom, when you run this application, you'll find that the slideshow stops on a full image, not one that is fading out or fading in. And that's just because of the way that it was set up. Again, as mentioned, there are a multiple number of ways that you can do this. So with this code, the user can stop a slideshow by clicking on a slide and restart it again by clicking on it again. All right. So the code for the slideshow doesn't have to be repeated. It's coded as an arrow function and stored in a constant named run slideshow right there. All right. All right. Now I'm going to disagree a little bit with the authors here. The author says now they're going to talk about animation, but really we've been using animation all along. In fact, since we've gotten into jQuery, we've been using animation. And I would also argue that the first exercise we looked at as a class this morning, all right, where we had that text, either a show more or show less, that was animation. It might have been very crude, but it was animation anyway. Now, on the next page, they're going to show the basic syntax of the animate method. Notice it says the first parameter is what's known as a properties map. All right, it's coded in curly braces, and it's a bunch of name value pairs. And they give an example. Font size is the name, 275% is the value. Opacity is the name, 1 is the value. Left is the name, 0 is the value. All right. Now, before we go on and look there where they say the second parameter, notice here it says font size. That's not the way we're used to writing font size in our CSS. We're used to writing font-size. You can't do that because what's happening is we're in JavaScript here. Even though we're referencing CSS properties, we're in JavaScript. So if you say, for example, if you come in here and you say this, all right, like that, it assumes that you want to take a variable called font and subtract from it a variable called size. Rather, you have to put it in using camel casing, like that. That's anytime you have a property that you want to be able to manipulate in JavaScript, all right, a CSS property like that that has a hyphen in it, you've got to replace the hyphen and make it camel cased. All right, and they say that in here as well. So the second parameter is the duration of the animation. Remember, we talked a little bit about this earlier. You can put in any number in there, and it's the number of milliseconds. So for instance, in here, it's 2000 for 2 seconds. And if you don't put a number in there, it defaults to, I think it's 4/10 of a second. All right, or you can put in slow, which defaults to like 6/10 of a second, or you can put in fast, which I believe defaults to 2/10 of a second. There's a lot of ways that you can do it. So the first example they say in there shows the starting CSS for a heading that's animated. It starts with its font size at 75% and its opacity of 0.2, meaning it's faded out. You can barely see it. Its left position is minus 175 pixels, which means it's moved to the left of where it normally is. Sometimes when you animate like that, you will use negative numbers to make something that literally wasn't on screen appear from left to right or top to bottom or whatever. All right. So then they take that animate and they increase the font size to 275% from 75. So they make it, almost 3 times as big. They they come in and reset the opacity from 0.2 to 1, meaning it's totally opaque now. All right, and set its left position back to 0, which is its normal position. And again, this is done over 2 seconds. All right, they do mention a couple of other things here. Notice, to make this work correctly, the position property for the heading must be set to relative. All right, that means that the settings for the left and top are relative to where they are in the normal flow. All right, Then there's another example, but the third one includes a callback function. So remember, what that's saying is after everything else has been finished, then do that. All right. When you code the properties for a function, again, you must obey the rules. So like I said, font size and not font size. All right. So they show some examples in here. And the last one says we want to do this. This is the callback. So this one says after you successfully complete this over 2 seconds, then do this over 1 second. Now, when you chain functions, so had we come in here and done, after this, come in there and done another dot animate, we wouldn't have to run this as a callback function. And many users don't like to use callbacks with animation. They'd rather just call animate another time. So it's another way that you can do it. I think they're going to talk about that in here. All right. So as it says, to chain animations, you can use the same techniques that you would for any other method. So it's the dot operator followed by, whatever. And they're going to show some examples in here. So this is what I meant, multiple calls. All right, so that's redoing it that way without an arrow function. All right, and there's nothing wrong with doing it either way. It's the one that you're more comfortable with. When you go and load all that stuff, what happens is it queues everything. All right, and what I mean is it comes in here and it basically throws that into a queue and that one after it. Then it starts to run this. When this is finished, it goes back to the queue and grabs it and does the next one. This can lead to some weird stuff happening. If you've got something, let's say that you've got something set up like our thing up here. What if you just if I click here and then I click there and I click there, I keep clicking real quick. Click, 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 etc. It's going to queue all that stuff and it will do it. But what's weird is it usually will attempt to start something as soon as something else ends, and it'll not work very well. Let's just put it that way. So you want to set it up because you never know what a user is going to do. So you very well might want to come in and use 1, 2, or all 3 of the methods discussed here on page 294. All right. The delay method delays the start of the animation. All right, so it's kind of like setting a timeout. All right. Then we've got the stop, as it says, that stops the animations in the queue, but only the selected one. Then there's finish, which stops the selected one and gets rid of everything that's in the queue. All right. So if you want to stop everything, you can use finish. And they're explained right here if you don't like my explanation. So the delay, as it says, works as an alternative to the use of a one-time timer. The stop stops this bouncing effect, which we're going to talk about on Thursday, and we'll look at it again in just a couple minutes. Well, that's right here. So if we actually go out here and we go out to and we'll do this on Thursday in more depth and breadth of coverage. But if I go out to jQuery, let's try that again. If I go out in a new window to jQueryUI.com, what you'll notice when we look in here is it'll have a whole bunch of things that we can do. And if we go down to effects, they'll have a thing in there that says easing. All right. And it will show you some examples of using easing. All right. Now, these are real simple here. But when you watch this, that's basically going at the same speed. That's very uniform. This starts fast, then slows down, then goes fast again. Okay? So there's different ways that you can do this. All right? There's different ways that you can set this up. So our author in here defines easing, as it says, as the determination of the way an animation is performed. So as it says, it can start slowly, pick up speed, or it can start and end, all right, with a bounce. But jQuery provides two: linear, which is the first one I showed you, where the linear easing moves an animation at a uniform speed, so it doesn't go any faster or slower. All right. But the swing gives more of a bounce effect. So typically you see that used a lot. It just looks a little bit more professional. All right. Notice in this example here on page 297 that if I look at the mustard here, a mustard code at the top of the page, here we are including two different things. First is our regular jQuery, and the second one is something from it's the jQuery easing. Okay, so it's basically a subset of jQuery that we can use. And there's ease out, bounce. This I didn't like this at all, but I thought that it was in here in what I had just shown you. All right, I'm going to do this again. All right, so there's easing. They used to have more examples than this in here. See, easing demo. I guess that's the one. So hide demo. Nope, that's it. Okay, here we go. So here. So this is a hide. And notice what we can do in here. So here's the effect. All right. And then here's bounce. And you can see the big effect. All right. But what's nice here is come into here and take a look at this. So come into jQueryui.com, work your way down and find effects. Click on easing, then click on hide demo, and you can see all of the different things that you can do. There's an explode. All right. There's a fade. You can see all of them. They're all things that are available. Plus, for any one of them, you can go down and grab the associated source code. Okay. All right. So as they mentioned here, easing refers to the way an animation is performed. Plugins provide many types of easings. All right. And to use them, you code a script element. I've started showing you that, and we'll see more of it in chapter 11. All right, on Thursday. Okay. The last part that's in here, the next two pages are on advanced animation. I'm not going to go through those. It's hard enough to just understand animation to begin with. So I'm just going to jump into here, which is the last 4 pages of this chapter. This is a carousel application that's built using HTML, CSS, and jQuery. I do want to mention to you, it is possible to build. It is possible for you to come in here and to build a carousel using vanilla JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, or to build a carousel using HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap, or build a carousel with just HTML and CSS. But to provide some of the animation-like features, typically you would use something like jQuery. Now, the example that they create here isn't that cool. You click on here and it either rotates to the left or it rotates to the right. There are 7 books and it shows 3 at a time. All right. And then every time you click, it'll move over 1. All right. And they give you the JavaScript and the jQuery for this. Not a whole heck of a lot in here. Now, I went through this quickly, quicker than I did in class, and I apologize for that. All right. I will tell you one more time that tomorrow the plan is not there. The plan is here that what we're going to do are 3 things. 3 things. First, we're going to come in and do this modify an image swap application. So when you click on any one of these, what's in there will fade away or fade out, and the new one you click will fade in. So we will do exercise 9.1 together. 9.2 to modify this carousel to use animation. I'm going to let you do that one. All right. Then I looked at these and I thought this was the silly one here because I've never seen an image gallery with hyperlinks. but so I'll let you do that one. We will do this debug a slideshow application. We will do that together tomorrow. When we get done with that, we will go out to, try it again, come on, Chapter 10, How to Work with Forms and Data Validation. It is a short chapter. Only it is less than 20 pages, closer to 15. So we will go over that. Then when we get done with that, please note, there is 10.1, use JavaScript to validate a form. All right, and if we look at the other one, oops, try that again. All right, so there's 9.2. There isn't anything for chapter 10 in this one. So we will do together as a class this exercise. So we'll do 3 things tomorrow. We will do 2 exercises from chapter 9. Then we'll have the lecture on chapter 10. Then we will do this exercise for chapter 10. Then on Thursday, we will go through chapter 11. And when we're done, we'll do 1 or 2 exercises from chapter 11. Again, I apologize that my internet connection went down or somehow I got dropped. I'm redoing it right now. I don't know if it's better or worse than when I did it before. So thanks for listening.